Sherry, you started this company, Roster, about, what was it, a year and a half ago. What was your thesis back then about hiring? This is a hiring and placement company.
Hello. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Maybe I'll give a TLDR context on a bit of a introduction as well. So my name is Sherry. I am the CEO at Roster. We're a hiring platform for the creator space. So we work with creators and brands when they're looking to hire anything that's behind the camera. So think video editors, script writers, producers, anything that's basically unrelated to the person who's actually the person you see on screen. On the side, I film YouTube videos myself as well, so it's a pain point that I've experienced before. So to answer your question, in terms of what was my stance on hiring, I think when it comes to hiring, I think the main thing, especially with a lot of folks in the room, even for myself years back, is 10 years ago when you looked at a YouTuber online, if they told you that they didn't edit their own videos, they'd be a sellout. Like, how dare you not edit your own videos? How could you, outsource that to someone else when that's quite literally your job? And it's so insane that in just the last 5 to 10 years, how much more normalized it got where creators are CEOs, they're employers, they're managers. And even a year and a half ago, this is what post-COVID days, right? TikTok has blown up all over the world. There's a lot more creators. And there's jobs like thumbnail designer. So when you watch YouTube videos, there's a JPEG photo image preview of the video. Nowadays, it is not uncommon where it's someone's full-time job to design JPEG files to A/B test thumbnails on YouTube. And can you even imagine that being a job 10 years ago? So it's insane.
No. And you were a creator before you started the company. So what was the lesson that you got from being a creator that made you feel, okay, this is something that's really needed, and this is a service and a business I can create?
For sure. So I've been filming YouTube videos since I was a teenager. So it's been over 10 years now. Feels weird saying that out loud.
14.
Yeah,
you were
exactly.
14 when you put out your first video.
14 years old. And I think one of the things when I talk to aspiring creators as well, when they ask me for advice, one of the things, I don't really regret anything usually, but I would say if I could go back in time and start my creator journey all over again, I would have hired someone earlier than later. Because yes, filming videos on YouTube, in the grand scheme of like all the different jobs out there, it's not the most painfully difficult job by any means. But when it comes to any creative work, it's so easy to burn out. And when you're talking about especially long-form content as well, you're obviously doing a lot more jobs than you didn't even realize. You're script writing, you're thinking about the videos. Now thinking of video titles and ideas is ideation strategist, which is an actual full-time job for some folks as well. And so for my journey being a creator for over 10 years, I only started working with a video editor myself, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. And it has been an absolute lifesaver. It's not that it's no longer my creative vision, but it's one of those things where you can't physically spend enough time to do all the different aspects and do it well. So if there's certain aspects where you can find someone who's on the same wavelength as you and kind of give them the direction, it makes life a lot easier for sure.
Yeah, so if someone came to you and said, Sherry, I need to hire someone, what would your recommendation be as to who that first person would be in terms of role?
By far, even at Roster, so we work with tons of creators. We've helped creators anywhere from 10, 20,000 followers or subscribers all the way through to 30 million and above. So we've seen the full spectrum. By far, the most commonly hired roles is still video editors. Obviously, with all your AI tools out there, you can probably streamline a few things like slicing a long-form YouTube video into shorter TikTok videos and things like that. That's doable with AI, but I think right now there's still so much of that specific creative vision people have that they need to still work with a video editor. And it doesn't matter how big you are. That is usually the part where there's quite literally there's no fast track to it. You need to just sit there and kind of edit the videos yourself. And as a result, it's one of the most sought after roles to this day.
And what would be some of the other roles? Give us an idea of the really unsexy roles that are out there that are really needed.
I'm not sure about unsexy. I guess it depends on like what you like doing, but the most common roles that we do see and we help creators hire, I would say definitely video editors, script writers, producers. Creative director is a bit of a broad term that creators use. It can really encompass a wide range of things. So they don't really follow what you see in traditional production in Hollywood. And then you've got roles like ideation strategists, right? Like their entire job is to be in the writer's room to think of ideas, brainstorm, notice trends. And we talked about thumbnail designer just now. Yes, it sounds like all you do is design JPEG files, but actually a lot of what these roles are focused on is more of the data layer behind it. So what they'll do is they'll upload a thumbnail, they'll A/B test it, they'll monitor click-through rate, and at the end of the day, I know there's a lot of brands in the room as well. If you're sponsoring a creator and they're not driving click-through rate, it doesn't matter how well the integration was done in the video because nobody even clicked into it in the first place. So for creators, all these metrics at every part of the journey is basically their funnel. And it's one of those things where people don't realize every single TikToker, YouTuber, creator you see online, they're basically each a production company. It's just more democratized now. And it started off as a one-man band, filming videos at home. But very quickly, if you propel yourself into stardom and you start picking up traction and going viral, you're forced to learn about how to run, hire, and operate a production house. And it's not something that's very accessible in terms of a knowledge base and resources out there right now. So it's good to see this being a bit more normalized in the space.
Yeah, and it's not just building a production house, you're building a company and a business as well. So what have you seen in the past year and a half of doing this as to where creators are headed?
So the session of today's session is called Creators as CEOs, right? I think one of the big things people didn't realize is you don't necessarily have to be the CEO of the company if you're the creator. Some creators are not the best managers. And if you think about it, a lot of the creators we see nowadays, they may have started when they were a teenager, 18, 19. They may not have even worked a quote unquote corporate job before. They never experienced what it feels like to work in a normal working environment. So they may not be the best managers. They may not like doing all the operational, unsexy behind the scenes stuff. So with a lot of creators, what we always tell them when they're thinking about how to scale is think about what you're actually good at, what you enjoy, and double down on that. So if you're really good with creatives, maybe you should be the chief creative officer. You don't force yourself into a role that you don't actually enjoy. But if you're someone who really wants to run it like a business, you can think about things operationally. That's when you're like, okay, I want to actually be the role of a CEO. I'm going to think about how to scale this business. And that's why we have a lot of folks nowadays in the creator space that are also offering fractional COO services. So they've worked with some of the biggest YouTubers in the world and they've helped them set up their business. Now they're offering their knowledge to up and coming creators and they're like, hey, I'll help you figure out how to run your internal operations. You focus on all the creative, external facing things. Let's tag team. And it's really great that we're seeing creators starting to pick up this habit as well. And
is this something that you do at Roster as well? Do you have fractional CEOs and COOs and any one of these C's in there?
So a lot of basically what we do at Roster is we provide the infrastructure for creators to go and find their next hire. So we have a talent database where think of it as kind of like an IMDb, but for all social content. So if I love watching, let's say the biggest YouTuber in the world, Mr. Beast, or I love watching productivity videos from Ali Abdaal, how do I find out who Ali Abdaal's video editor is? Who is the script writer? And Roster has a matching algorithm basically where we analyze your content and we'll recommend you people who you should hire based off of the similarities in your styles. And so that's the part where whether you're looking to hire more production-related roles like video editors or you're looking more strategy and ops, there will be someone out there, but you probably want to hire someone that has experience working with others in the similar space. So if you do, let's say, healthcare content, you probably want to hire someone that has an inherent interest in healthcare and has worked with other health-related creators before. And it makes getting on the same wavelength a lot easier. It's the same thing with hiring in, let's say, in tech, right? If you're hiring in a more traditional role, you probably want to hire someone that's worked at another tech startup before so they understand what they're getting themselves into and they can get up to speed a lot quicker. It's pretty much the exact same thing when it comes to creative work as well.
And you also work with brands, right? That's the other side of the equation for you. How does that work out?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. Stripe is a massive, obviously, fintech company. They were one of our customers once, and you're probably wondering, what the hell is Stripe doing here, right? Like, this is creator stuff. But at the end of the day, every single company out there should be, if you're not already, you should be making content. It's part of a marketing strategy, content marketing. And a lot of times when it comes to companies hiring, even if you're not a media company, you want to still seed content out there. The only places you can really go to is Upwork and Fiverr right now. If you want to produce some content and have a video editor, how do you actually accelerate that content production process? It's the exact same thing. At the end of the day, as long as the piece of content lives on social media, you will probably need to outsource one part of that production process. Where do you go? We're kind of here as a platform to make that easier.
Can we talk a little bit about your journey in creating Roster as well? This obviously came out of COVID. So now looking back at the year and a half that you've done this, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently?
That's a great question.
As a business, founder, manager, CEO.
Yeah. To be fair, I feel like even right now, a year and a half in, we're pivoting all the time. So a lot of the core philosophy, I think, even just working with creators, is working very closely with them to get their feedback. So our product and our team has been working so hard to evolve the product pretty much on a weekly, monthly basis whenever we get feedback. So not necessarily going back in time, what would I change, but even now the adopted mindset that we have at the company is let's continue to iterate and make sure that we're always staying on top of what feedback we're getting from creators to make it as useful as possible.
And what's the most common feedback that you get from your users right now?
Creators are some of the most difficult people in the world to work with. Honestly, I think anyone in this room that is an MCN or a talent agency, if you've worked with creators, they're very difficult. It's not that they're bad people or anything. It's just you're working with people who were responsible for everything from A to Z on their own. So it's very difficult for them to let go of something to hire someone else to handle it. And creators are creatives. Creatives are very proud of their craft. They're very particular with the vision that they have. So that's the trickiest part, is making sure that we actually listen to them. And to be honest, on our team, what we do is every week we have calls with our creators, with our users, and we get feedback from them. And when there's enough feedback for a certain feature, our team's actually working super hard to go and build that the next week. And so basically our entire product, even down to our logo at Roster, was voted by our users. And that's the most amazing part about, I think, this industry, is that everything is so online. You're borderless in terms of who you can impact. A lot of our users are based in the US and UK, but we also have creators in Singapore hiring through us as well. So it's nice being able to crowdsource all that information and then make decisions internally at the company based off of that.
I gotta say, I do like your logo. I thought it was really quite unique in its presentation. What happens a year from now? So you've got AI coming in. You've got more people using AI to create, their work. What does that do for your company a year from now?
Yeah, it's really great that you asked that, because I honestly am a huge fan of what AI is doing for just generally, right? Not just in the creative industry, but I use ChatGPT to accelerate my workflows. What I very much see in terms of Roster, where our positioning is at, the beauty of what we do is we're on the peripheral and kind of infrastructure layer. So our job is to make sure we continue to monitor what jobs are trending. For example, when crypto Web3 was massive and everyone was launching an NFT project, you suddenly had a huge burst of people hiring community managers for Discord servers, because every NFT project had a Discord server. So now there's a huge boom in community managers being hired. Now, obviously, things might change as well. The scope of the jobs, and I'm sure there will be jobs that are going to retire over time, as with any new technology being introduced, but the job titles may change. So instead of a scriptwriter, what we have seen people hire is they want a scriptwriter that pumps out 3 times more scripts each week, because they want them to use AI tools to generate new ideas faster. So the output they expect from their team members may be different, or the scope and the JDs may change. But the fun thing that we get to do is monitor what requests we hear from creators, what their hiring needs are, and we almost get a bit of a kind of foreshadowing into where we see the industry heading based on what the creators are asking us. And so at Roster, at least, what we get to do is monitor these jobs, what's not being requested anymore, we'll slowly retire those. And if there's a lot of people hiring prompt engineers or script writers that know how to use AI tools, we'll start introducing that onto the platform. So it's a great way for us to always get first dibs into what's happening in the creator world, which I think we're really lucky for.
Yeah, and if you had to make a bet into that future, what would you say would be the most commonly sought after job next year?
Next year, that feels like not very far later, actually. We're already in the middle of the year. To be honest, I think as of next year, because we're pretty much 6-7 months away, I actually think video editors are still very much here to stay. It is still one of those things where no matter how good the AI tools are right now in present day, we haven't heard very many creators obfuscate their video editing team with these tools. So I'm very excited to see where that continues to go. But in terms of how robust it is and how much creators, someone who has a very specific vision when they film the content, can AI tools replace that? We haven't seen that yet. So I think for next year, it is still probably going to be a very dominant role that we see creators hiring for.
And what about you? You still have a YouTube channel that you keep alive and you keep that going. What is that like, having to do that and your founder's job?
Yeah, no, it's my founder day job, like working on roster, is definitely where 1,000% of my effort goes. With YouTube, I think I'm very fortunate that it gives me perspective. So it helps me work with creators a lot easier. It helps me understand and empathize a lot better. But it's something that I am able to do because I have my video editors as well. So I can film, and we've worked together for so long. They understand my creative vision very quickly, so I can hand it off to them, and I will just make revisions as we go along. I still very much plan on continuing filming videos myself, but I think the more impactful, purposeful thing for me is seeing how there's so much change that's happening in the space. We get to help up-and-coming creators, and even when we were chatting earlier, I think this is the future of work, is the creator space. If you talk to any 10 to 15-year-old, like, there's going to be at least 5 out of 10 of them that tell you they want to be a TikToker, they want to be a creator, or they're already filming some videos just for fun. But that's how we all start. We all started just for fun in our bedroom, filming a back-to-school supplies haul. Next thing you know, you're doing all these things as a creator. You're starting a newsletter like Jim, and so it all started with that seed. And I'm excited to see how these creators are becoming employers. They're the employers of all these jobs that are happening tomorrow, and tomorrow is like right around the corner. It's happening now, and I think the more we normalize creators as businesses, production houses, the more we realize the line between traditional media and social and digital is extremely blurred. You have Netflix shows featuring creators. You have creators still aspiring to be there, but they'll also just produce their own shows. They can fundraise on their own. Creators are raising $100 million in the US to do all sorts of crazy things. So they're all entrepreneurs. A lot of them are entrepreneurial in spirit, and they're just navigating through their way on how to make it sustainable from a mental health standpoint and from a business perspective. I'm really stoked to see where the industry goes.
Yeah, and if you had to give advice to anyone who's thinking about starting their own thing today in 2024, given everything you know about where this industry is going, the risks that are out there and the possibilities, what would be the one thing you would tell them to avoid?
To avoid, what I was not necessarily avoid, but I was just gonna say anyone that wants to get started is just freaking do it. So avoid procrastinating, I guess, is the thing, because I think I've had at least 100 of these conversations before on any advice if I want to start as a creator. And the reality is, I think 99 out of 100 people never end up doing it. So just get your first, if it's a LinkedIn post, whatever it is, just get it out there. Because I think the reality of where everything is heading is everyone needs personal branding. Your company has a branding, but now personal branding is so important. And you can get a job with a mediocre CV, but fantastic branding, and there's a lot of self-proclaimed AI experts these days, right? But they kind of just regurgitate a lot of articles they see online and put their own spin on it, right? But the thing is, you have a perspective on something, you share it, people now think of you as a thought leader, and there's a lot more doors and opportunities that can open when you share that online. So I think people need to just get started. Everything else will fall into place. All the biggest creators out there didn't have the fanciest cameras, didn't have the fanciest setups when they first started. They just figured that shit out as they went along, basically. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but they just figured it
Go
out
for
as
it.
they went. So yeah, I think like that's the advice is like, don't sit on it. Just, give it a shot and just see where it takes you. There's a lot of doors that are going to open that you didn't even realize was a door you even wanted.
Well said. So, build a brand, get started, and just get shit out there. Since you
Yeah.
swore, I get to swear too. All right, Sherry, thank you so much for your time.